What's up, y'all? You know what time it is? It's about to be that time.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
What's up, bitches? I'm a man cheater. You want to do something with this?
Savage.
And we're back. And guess what's out, people? One Piece 1069.
Nice.
And I've gotta shout this out at the beginning. Always read the official when it comes out. Do not trust spoilers. Once I know spoilers are out, I'm off the internet. But a lot of people did try, I found out after the fact, did try to spoil me. Because I had some hot takes about Luffy versus Lucci. I said this was not going to be a one-hit KO, low diff situation.
Another one.
Luffy was not getting out of here easy. He's making it look easy, sure. But it being easy is a whole other question. Lucci is a beast. People accuse me of being too much of a Lucci lover. I am vocal that Lucci is one of my least favorite villains in the series. I was just drawing off of narrative cues, people. That's it. Oda's got plans for Lucci. First spoilers that came out said that Lucci was one-hit KO'd, apparently. So people kept saying, oh, L this, L that. Oh, this take aged like milk. Your takes aged like milk. Because you were reactionary and jumped right at the first spoilers that came out.
Savage.
I can't help you. I can't help you. I also can't help the people that said Luffy wouldn't go gear 5th.
Another one.
I've been saying since the beginning of the arc, Kizaru will be in this arc.
Another one.
That he will likely be the greatest threat of this arc. Well, he's on his way. We already know I was talking about how we needed Senatmaru in the arc. Well, he's here now, and maybe he's gone now, too. I mean, this is One Piece, so Senatmaru likely isn't dead, but this is exactly the type of ferociousness, viciousness, savageness that I needed from Lucci.
Look, I like the man cheetah thing. I want to go back to doing shit like this. Are you guys on board? I want to go back to the way things were.
We're going to get into all of the implications here. Like, comment, subscribe if you're feeling the vibe.
Make a wish.
In a world of your imagination.
Lucci is awakened, and he has a black deity cloud around him. Now, is this a manifestation of his will? His dark justice created a dark deity? I mean, I think it's very likely, and I think that that's probably what Oda's explanation for this is going to be. Now, prior to Luffy awakening, we did see these deity flames in Gear 4th. So you don't necessarily need to be awakened in order to have this, but I do think that this is a clear sign that you've achieved awakening, getting these clouds. So there's a possibility that Yamato was, that Kaido was not, and none of his team was either. Lucci's a bloodthirsty dude. He's very intelligent, he's very cunning, he's very cat-like. So him having the leopard fruit is a really, perfect match. And I think this is a situation where mind, body, and soul have connected in such a way that that's how Lucci was able to achieve this awakening. Similar to the way that Luffy is the embodiment of freedom, and here he has the Nika fruit, which is also the embodiment of freedom and imagination. Now, this also goes hand in hand with what Vegapunk is talking about in this chapter, that devil fruits are basically manifestations of will and desire to a certain degree. Do all devil fruits come from the Nika fruit initially? Maybe. I mean, if we wanted to get completely wacky. But the thing here is that having devil fruits only be limited by their imagination is Oda's out for every wacky thing that we've ever seen in the series. So, we're talking about Triceracopter, we're talking about Queen jumping out of his shell, King stretching his face out, which is all, true paleontology, of course. But, then we also have things like Kaku eats his fruit, and, one of the first things he does is retract his neck inside of himself and use it like a slingshot, which, of course, we know giraffes are prone to do. But there's a larger question at play of how devil fruits are essentially created, because, if we're going along with Vegapunk's theory, then, a lot of things could be this. If you can essentially imagine and will any sort of ability, then pretty much anybody should be able to do this. And yet we still have things that are unexplained in the story, like Ashura and Rokushiki. And I mean, Rokushiki is, it seems like it's based in martial arts, but a lot of the stuff is pretty ridiculous. We have things like Demonio Flor, Robin, the demon child, and then she creates this manifestation of essentially a demon. Imagination at play, at work. The reason Luffy stretches is because Shanks said this is the Gomu Gomu no Mi. It will make you stretch. Well, that is already feeding the imagination. Shanks handed him the fruit and said, hey, this is the spring fruit. It'll turn your body into springs. Luffy probably would have turned his body into springs like Bellamy. It's just, I mean, he essentially does that when he goes into Gear 4th anyway. Retracts his arms and all of this. Luffy has always been picking up abilities from his enemies, just like he did with Bellamy, just like he did with countless others. He learns from his fights, uses his imagination, and then incorporates it into his own fighting style. Can't wait to learn more about Devil Fruits. Which Oda said, when we meet Vegapunk, we were going to learn about them. We're finally learning about them. Everybody knows that Luffy is a Zoan now, except for Luffy. But that's coming. And of course, Luffy needed to go Gear 5 to get this lore done. Yeah. Now, speaking of lore, let's switch over to folklore. All right, now I've talked plenty of times, earlier in Wano, about the folklore of Kintaro. Woo! Senatmaru is main basis for that in One Piece. Kintaro is the story of a young boy who has, seemingly super strength, but the ability to communicate with animals, right? There were elements of that were used for Tama, but Tama was mostly Momotaro. But Senatmaru literally looks like Kintaro, and then now with his control of the Seraphim, which all have a code name that is an animal, right? Senatmaru is literally communicating with animals. S-bear, S-hawk, S-shark, S-snake. This is on purpose. This is Kintaro. One of the key questions here is, where is Kizaru going to land on the, spectrum here, right? We already have the civil war that I was, talking about last week, basically building, right? Because Vegapunk is, telling Senatmaru that he's got to go up against CP0, and basically protect Luffy, which is like, it's treason, right? And he's like, wait, that's going to make me a traitor. And then Vegapunk pulls out, hey, you were this starving kid when I met you, which goes back to the Kintaro story. And, maybe we'll explore that in a flashback later. Maybe Senatmaru is from Wano, since he's based off of a Japanese folklore. Perhaps Vegapunk took a trip to Wano. Who knows? But Senatmaru calls Kizaru his uncle. Now, this is not really in the you are literally my blood situation, but more so like in the way that someone would address a higher up in the Yakuza. Does Kizaru take this relationship between him and Senatmaru more seriously than we think? Is it enough for him to turn against the world government? I am of the camp that I think Kizaru should stay pro-government the entire series. Keep him as a bad guy. Have him fight Zoro. Okay? Zoro, when he lost to Mihawk, he said, I will never lose again. You know what? He did actually lose again. He lost, and it was not a fair fight, but he lost to Kizaru. And he needs to get that W back. We need a rematch, all right? Does Kizaru appear on the Sunny? And then we just go immediately into Zoro versus Kizaru. Who knows? This is not the time for the all-out fight, but a skirmish would be appreciated. I know that there are people out there that want Sanji to fight Kizaru based on, that one opening and everything like that. No, it makes more sense for Zoro to go up against Kizaru's lightsaber. Sanji can fight Green Bull so that he can actually put the smack down on a moss head in the story. And his flames should burn his plants. But Kizaru is going to be in an interesting predicament, right? Because here's the thing. Kizaru willingly gave himself over to Vegapunk in order to be experimented on, because every single pacifista has a version of his power. That means that Kizaru has spent a extensive amount of time with Vegapunk in the same way that Kuma has. Does that mean that they are friendly? Will he want to protect Vegapunk? Or will he put duty first? Was he always putting duty first? I do not want Kizaru to be Sword. I do not want him to turn. I do not want him to be a good guy. I do not want him in any case to help the Straw Hats. We already have Kuzan. We don't need other admirals to do that. We actually need more villains as we go towards the end of the story, because there are too many people that have turned and, changed their attitude. And as we go further, we're going to see even more of that, especially within the ranks of the Marines. Still expecting Sword to show up, and for them to be on the side of the Straw Hats. So even if Helmeppo and Zoro have some sort of an interaction where they do scrap, eventually they're going to be working together to ultimately get Kobe back at some point. Best case scenario in my eyes is that Kizaru gets there and opts to be on the side of Cypher Pole Zero and essentially go after Vegapunk and try to stop the Straw Hats, and maybe be responsible for another catastrophic event that leads the Straw Hats to leave the island very quickly. We are told of a, sort of a vacuum tube that'll take everybody, or a rocket that's going to take everybody up into the upper dome. This is not a literal rocket. This is not moon foreshadowing, in my opinion. This is more so like in Futurama, when they would go into the tubes and then fly around the city. This is a way to bypass the laser system that would stop you if you were going into the upper areas. Essentially a way of safe travel through Egghead. We can confirm in this particular chapter that S-Hawk and S-Snake also have the see-through area where you can see the green blood, just like on the Jinbei Seraphim S Shark. So that may be a weakness that gets exploited at some point. One of the interesting confirmations in the chapter is also that in order to engage a Yonko, Cypher Pole Zero has to get explicit instructions from the government and the Marines. They basically have to get permission to do so. And that's just really cool to just feel Luffy on that level at this particular time in the story. It was still on site for Luffy and Lucci anyway, and it was always going to be. But I did like seeing that tidbit. This whole chapter was just awesome. Really. It has everything. The hierarchy of Seraphim control is a thing that I was really glad to get in this particular chapter. So that you've got it. It's the Authority Chip, Senatmaru, Vegapunk, and then the Gorosei, which is the most interesting thing, right? So essentially, the Gorosei probably funded and allowed this project to happen, but they had to have that safeguard in place so that Vegapunk could never turn on them, so that these devices would never be able to be used against the Gorosei or Emu, which kind of hurts the Order 66 theory in a little bit of a way, unless there's some way for them to alter the chip. In which case, we could get a scene where a Seraphim or even a Pacifista goes into the main hall with the Gorosei, and then they think that they have it under control, but then it turns on them anyway because they did some sort of sneaky switcheroo, which would be a lot of fun. We'll see if something like that happens. Now, with Senatmaru dispatched, this means that Lucci, Stussy, and Kaku have control over all 4 of the Seraphim that we see. And we're explicitly told that a snail order is not going to stop this. So Vegapunk can't just use a PA system and turn everything. He's going to have to show himself in order to stop the Seraphim, which could make things complicated. But with Lucci turning this on to Luffy, we could get Luffy trying to hold off Lucci and the Seraphim at the same time, which would probably have Luffy start sweating. And I think that's exactly what we're going to get in chapter 1070. And being that it is the last chapter of the year, I think the best stinger for the year to end off on would be Kizaru showing up to Egghead and potentially landing in front of Zoro. Still feel it's more likely that Sword runs into Zoro first, but I can't get it out of my head that just Zoro versus Kizaru on site needs to happen. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be the old man that goes and shows up and makes an order. One of the satellites could sacrifice themselves. Any one of them. And it would stop that, until one of Cypherpole goes and, attacks the satellite. This could get crazy and really chaotic, and I really hope that it does. As always, I'm still on the train that Lucci is the one that killed Cobra. That's what I need. Maybe Bonnie could be the key to unlocking some of this Reverie lore. If she wakes up and everything and she sees Lucci, she may have been present for this and it didn't necessarily mean anything to her, but by seeing Lucci, she's able to bring that up. It seemed like she wanted to talk about Sabo, she wanted to talk about some of the stuff that happened at the Reverie. Lucci may, open his mouth at some point. Give us the lore dump, Oda. Give it to us. And that's going to wrap things up, guys. Thanks as always for the support in the comments, by liking, in the streams, everything. Shout out to our new members, Baby Pluto N and Reese M. Lucas. Shout out to everybody that has been a member. Looking forward to 1070 in 2 weeks. We'll be streaming probably right before Christmas. Maybe on the, probably the 23rd, but next week, I'm gonna try and set up a theory for theory. Put your guest suggestions in the comments. And as always, like, comment, subscribe if you're feeling the vibe. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
I've been swimming deep, deep. Savage.